Hello, scholars. My name is Joseph AGK and the topic of our lecture tonight is the cost of capital. So let us begin. When we say cost of capital, we are referring to the cost or the funds, the money that we use to finance a business. So the cost of capital depends on the type of financing used. Sometimes we call it the cost of equity. And we do that if the business is financed solely by using equity. Okay? Or the cost of debt. Yeah, we call it the cost of debt sometimes if this business is financed solely with debt. Now, there's one thing we need to know. It is that many companies actually use a combination of debt and equity to finance their projects. Now, there's a tax advantage for that. We're going to do that in the subsequent lectures we have in the future. But it is a fact that many companies use the combination of equity and debt to finance their businesses. And for this kind of and for the companies that do that, their overall cost of capital is derived from a weighted average of all the sources of capital. And we call that the weighted average cost of capital. And that will be the focus of our lecture tonight, which is the weighted average cost of capital. Make sure you're seeing all this. Okay. So we also need to know that because of the fact that the cost of capital represents a hurdle rate that a company must overcome before it can generate any kind of value. So it is very extensively used in the capital budgeting process to determine whether the company should proceed with a project or not. Eventually, we're going to do capital budgeting in subsequent lectures. But like I said, tonight, we are all roads leads to the concept of weighted average cost of capital. So let's go to what we have today, which is our main focus, how to compute the weighted average cost of capital. So what is the weighted average cost of capital anyway? Well, we in finance, we give you the acronym WACC. Well, so the weighted average cost of capital simply means the average rate a company pays to finance, its assets. So we calculate it by averaging the cost of all the company's sources of capital, both capital from equity or capital from debt. So when I say that, I mean loans, credit card, credit line. Then equity, of course, ownership. So the amount of money you brought to the business for your savings, or if you have investors that put money in their business, that amount they put is equity. Okay, owner's net worth. Okay. Now, so we calculate the weighted average cost of capital by averaging the cost of all the company's sources of capital, including both the debt and equity. And each of them we weighted by the proportion of each component. So in other words, the weighted average cost of capital is a calculation that of the company's cost of capital, whereby each category of the capital is proportionally weighted, which also means that all capital sources, common stock, preferred stock, bond, or other sources of like debt, bond is a debt, of course. So all of them are included in the calculation of weighted average cost of capital. Sometimes in a question, they will give you the cost of this cost, like the one we're going to do tonight, the cost of debt and the cost of equity will be given to you. But the one we do in subsequent lectures where those costs are not given, where we need to calculate those costs ourselves before we can be able to calculate the weighted average cost of capital. So we'll do how, we'll do some lectures on how to calculate all those costs. Then now show you how to factor them in when calculating the weighted average cost of capital. So, but in this lecture, we'll do an example of where those costs are already given to you in a question. So I will also need to know that the weighted average cost of capital is a very important metric for companies to use when making financial decisions. So in other words, we can use it to determine the profitability of new projects, the cost of raising capital, and the value of the company. So a company or a project that have a higher weighted average cost of capital mean that that company is paying a higher rate to finance its assets. So and of course this will can be for any reason, but mostly because it can be because the company is riskier or has lower growth prospects, or that it has higher debt loads. Now, a low weighted average cost of capital means that the company is paying a lower rate of to finance their asset or their projects. Now, there can be many reasons for that. Again, usually it could be that the company is less risky, or that the company has a higher growth prospect. It can also be that the company has a lower debt load, so cost reduces. For example, I gave 3 examples here for Apple. Apple Incorporated, usually I think their cost of capital is 8% or something around that number. I mean, the weighted average cost of capital for Apple. This is simply mainly because Apple is a relatively low risk company with high growth prospects. A company like Tesla has the cost of capital, the weighted average cost of capital is higher than that of Apple at 11%. Of course, Tesla is a good company, but they made significant progress with respect to building battery cars. But that progress come at a very high cost. They have burned a lot of cash to come to where they are. Like I said, they have made a lot of progress, and in the process of developing electric vehicles. Now they even have developed other significant projects like SpaceX, and also Starlink internet or satellite, whatever they call it these days. Anyway, the bottom line is that they have a higher cost of capital because it is a riskier company but it has very high growth prospects. Now, Walmart, which is a grocery chain, has a weighted average cost of capital of about 6% because Walmart is low risk, and also the growth prospect is not that much. So now, at this point, I think I have given you enough background. Now, let's look at how to do the actual work of calculating the weighted average cost of capital. This is the formula here. Weighted average cost of capital is E over V times KE plus D over V times KD minus plus D over V times KD times 1 minus T. Now, I'm going to identify what these letters and symbols in this formula represent. Don't worry about the formula. Like I always say, the formula might look like a monster, but if you start using them and you use them right, they are actually good for you because they give you what you want. So this E here represents the market value of equity. This one represents the market value of debt plus equity. KE, or I call it K sub E, represent the cost of equity. D is the cost of debt. Okay, So I forgot to put it here. It should be somewhere here. Cost of debt. Okay, all right, got it. So I missed it here. What is the cost of debt? Sorry, the market value of debt. Not the cost of market value of debt. V is the market value of debt plus equity. So remember, D is my market value of debt. So I think I for some reason I missed putting it here. Let me just type it down here. Note. Okay. D equals market value of debt. Value of debt. Okay. I think I have to update it also in my spreadsheet. Okay, I have it in my spreadsheet. I forgot. For some reason, I forgot to type it in. So so now I put it here already. So that should take care of it. D is market value of debt. Let's say this. Okay. Now, of course, K sub D here represent the cost of debt. And then this T is the corporate tax rate. Okay. So that's the formula we use. So there's some few things we need to know. Cost of equity simply means the return that investors require on a company, on a company stock. So we calculate it using a variety of methods, considering different factors, things like the company's risk, growth prospects, dividend yield. For the cost of debt, well, that is, when we say cost of debt, we are referring to the interest rate that a company pays on its debt. So, and then it is affected by the company's credit rating. Each company, like just like the way we the consumers, individual consumers have our credit scores. Companies also have their credit scores or ratings. And also on the prevailing interest rates. Then the tax rate is we use it to adjust the cost of debt because interest rate payments are tax deductible. The US corporate tax rate used to be at 5%, but during the Trump administration, they call it the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017, whereby the federal corporate tax rate was reduced from 35% to 21%. Okay. So having said that, let's do this. Look at this question here. It says, let us say that a company has 10 million in market value of equity and 5 million in market value of debt. The company's cost of equity is 10%. Okay. And the cost of debt is 6%. The corporate tax rate is 21%. Calculate the weighted average cost of capital. So there's two ways you can do this. And both ways involve the use of the formula. You can use a regular calculator, which I used here. I use to show on the PowerPoint presentation, or I can use Excel. I usually prefer Excel. So now let us get the inputs out. So I'm going to write it here on Excel. We have, I'll take you to our workbook in Excel so that we can add these inputs and then calculate the weighted average cost of capital. Just trying to make sure you can see this. Okay. So now, market value of equity. The question says that it is, according to the equation, it says that the company has 10 million in market value of equity and 5 million in market value of debt. So let me go and put them in. So the market value of equity is 10 million. Our market value of debt is 5 million. Okay. So the market value of debt and plus equity, that's our V is, you add them, put equal sign to make the cell ready for work. Click on this, then plus this. So all these are currencies. So I'm going to change them to money. Okay. All right. So now, according to the equation, the cost of equity, according to our equation, the cost of equity, the company cost of equity is 10%, and its debt is 6%. So let's go and put them in. 10% is it when we change it to decimal is 0.1. When we change 6% to decimal, it's 0.06. Okay. And we are told what is the tax rate. We are told that the corporate tax rate is 21%. So that we can go and put it in. Okay. 21%. 21%. Okay, which is, we change it to decimal, are gonna be 0.21. Oh, this one is changing this one to he's changing it to currency. So I'm gonna change it back to regular number. Okay. So we are ready to calculate. 1 is part of the formula, because when you look at the formula we have here, in my presentation, I see that 1 is part of the formula here. So let me copy the formula and put it on the Excel so that we can use it. Okay. I'm gonna insert a shape right there. Text box. So I can put the formula there. I'm gonna put it right here. Okay. Make it a little bit bigger. Yeah, I'll make it easy for us. You can always so we have everything in. So let us apply it. Put 1, because 1 is part of the formula right there. So the question says, according to the equation, it says here, okay, calculate the weighted average cost of capital. So let's do it. Let's just do it. So we're going to use this formula. So equal, so long as you put the formula, follow the steps and put the formula correctly, so we'll give you an answer right away. Equals, first part, let's put this part, this first half of it. This is E over V times KE. So I'm going to put parentheses. E, which is the cost of equity, is this, divided by V, which is the market value of equity, debt plus equity of 15. With parentheses, then times, let's say asterisk, use asterisk symbol as the times KE, which is the cost of equity here. Then you see the plus sign here. So plus, okay. Actually, let me, it is better to put this in parentheses so that it will close. They can, so one part of the formula is closed so that it will follow order of operation. See this part, I have put this part now. And then put plus now. I'm going to put plus sign so I can put this part of the formula. So I'm going to put plus parentheses. I'm going to put it 2 because we have two opening parentheses here. 1, 2. So D over V, which D is the market value of debt over V, which is the market value of debt plus equity, close it, then times KD, which is the cost of debt, okay, times, in parentheses, we have 1 minus tax rate. I didn't put 1. Okay, this is 1 here. Number 1 minus the tax rate of 21%. Then close it. See? So once I press the enter key now, it will give me the answer. Okay. So now I'm changing this to percentage. I click format cells, we choose percentage. Okay, I click OK. So this is the weighted average cost of capital for this company. 8.25%. 8.25%. Now, what does this mean? Okay, what does it mean? It means it can. There's some way. Method. The simplest way to explain it is that for this company, the weighted average cost of capital is 8.2%, which means that it pays an average of 8.2% to finance its assets. Excuse me. Now, in the coming lectures, like I said, if you notice in this example, they gave us the cost of equity and the market value of, they gave us the market value of equity. They gave us the market value of debt, and they gave us the cost of equity and cost of debt. In many examples that involve the calculation of weighted average cost of capital, they won't give you the cost of equity and cost of debt. You have to calculate them by yourself. Or sometimes they will not give you the market value of equity or debt. So you have to figure them out. So in the subsequent lectures, we do have those things. The next lecture we learn how to calculate cost of equity, cost of debt, then cost of market value, cost of equity. Then we can now try an example of calculating weighted average cost of capital, where we have to factor in those computation before we can even arrive at the actual work of computing weighted average cost of capital, which means that we are still going to do more examples on weighted average cost of capital. But before then, we need to learn how to calculate the cost of debt, how to calculate the cost of equity, like things like the cost of preferred stock, and so on and so forth. Then before we can be able to factor them in and calculating weighted average cost of capital. But this example is a good start. I hope you enjoyed the lectures. Thank you for listening. And when you get a chance, please subscribe to my channel so that you'll be notified each time I have a new lecture. Thank you for listening one more time, and have a good day.